You and I are constantly bombarded by misinformation from politicians, celebrities, and media personalities who demonize guns and gun owners. Their accounts are contrary to my experience as a responsible gun owner, a retired police officer, and a professional competitive shooter. I have listened to their lies and I've taken their punches, but I refuse to stay silent any longer because I know a lot of women who have something to say and they won in the game. They're ready to play offense with the truth.
The truth is, we all want the same thing: to protect ourselves, our families, and to be safe in our communities. The DC Project is a nationwide grassroots organization made up of women from every demographic. We come from all different walks of life, but we are united in preserving our Second Amendment rights. As we share our experiences, we push back against gun control lies and oppose those who demand our rights be restricted.
As an immigrant from Venezuela, I saw how easy it was for freedom to die. My family and I watched tyranny destroy our home. In Venezuela, the media, celebrities, and politicians repeated the same anti-gun messages until people found it normal and acceptable to give up their freedoms. The reality is, none of it is normal or acceptable. Hungry and helpless, Venezuelans are now unable to protect themselves. Now, as a proud American, I am determined to guard against the same things happening here.
We constantly hear about common sense gun control, like universal background checks, banning assault weapons, ghost guns, high-capacity magazines, and gun show loopholes. Every city that is facing massive crime waves have put these policies into place. Common sense tells me that they don't work. So why do people still believe the idea that those policies save lives? Actual common sense is holding criminals accountable, not letting them out of jail or encouraging them to be more confrontational. Common sense is not stealing the right of the American people to protect themselves. This is the message that America needs to hear.
The DC Project works to reduce firearm accidents by campaigning for education in schools. We counter the false gun control lies by testifying in hearings and meeting our legislators. We equip our friends, our families, and our communities to know the truth. Gun owners are good people.
America is a beacon of freedom. The Second Amendment is vital piece in ensuring that our kids can have a free country to grow up in. We stand with the lawmakers who support the Constitution, and we provide armor from the attacks by the gun control lobby.
Join the DC Project today. Become a member, donate, or subscribe to our newsletter for updates on how we educate, advocate, and preserve our Second Amendment rights for generations to come.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Computer standby.
You hit the radio bullseye. And the home for everything Second Amendment, concealed carry, the latest gear, reciprocity, legislation, the right to self-protection, and it shall not be infringed. This is Eye on the Target Radio with your hosts, Rob and Amanda.
Hey folks, welcome to another fabulous Sunday. Rob and I are just back from the NRA annual convention in Houston, 2,600 miles round trip as a road trip. See America. You know, what was that?
See the USA in a C. Miller Chevrolet.
Well, that was only if you were in C. Miller.
I guess
land.
Before that, it was just Doris Day kissing and blowing your kiss or something.
Something, I don't know, something like that.
Maybe it wasn't Doris Day. What was who was the other lady that was before Doris Day even?
Ooh, I don't know.
It'll come to me somewhere along the line. But anyhow, there was another Dinah Shore, maybe. I don't know. It was a blonde lady that
we're headed down old commercials that nobody knows but only Rob. It's in his head and we're not mining it out there, so yowza. So 2,600 miles to the NRA and back, and it was a good week.
We want to give a shout out to the Rodeo Goat. We had a great time there.
I put that in my notes also, that there is a chain of hamburger places called the Rodeo Goat, and we had never discovered them before, but let me tell you, we will be looking again because we were back. We'll just say it was good, and we went back. So while we were at NRA, I ordered a new gun. Isn't that? I mean, some of you are like, yeah, no big deal. Some of you are like, wow, you actually got off the dime and ordered something instead of still talking about it. So I'd been talking for a while about what was I going to get to take to Gunsight with us in October. So I wanted the gun. I wanted to be able to get a full-size 9mm, practice with it a little bit. And while we were at NRA, I had an opportunity to look for an FN similar to yours, but they quit making the model that you have. So they said, oh, the replacement is this FN 509. And it was kind of like it was an ice cream bar. Every different variation.
Everything's a 509, just they're different. You have to look through them. So.
You had to look through them all. So I found and I selected a 509 LS Edge, and it is amazing. And so Rob Morris wants to know what the hamburgers taste like at the Rodeo Goat. It's they were tasty. They were good.
I had one called a second breakfast. It was beef and sausage mixed together, and then it had hash browns and eggs and everything else on it. And
none of them.
Then you wash it down with the black and tan. Everything was perfect.
None of them seemed to have actual goat in them. It was goat was the mascot as opposed to goat was the menu. So, but.
I've ate goat before. It wasn't bad. It'd probably make a pretty good hamburger.
What, goat? Okay. I'm unsure where your head's going today, and hang on, folks. It's going to be a bumpy ride. It is going to be a bumpy ride. So out of the NRA, what was your favorite piece of it besides the Rodeo Goat? Besides the restaurants on the way there and back.
I enjoy looking at the collector clubs that are there and stuff, and some of the there was guys that had some transition long leads that were right at the end of the long lease version and the beginning of the smelly version of the short magazine rifle, as they called it.
So many people don't know what a long lee is versus a short lee versus the smelly.
Long lee to a short magazine rifle. Basically, they look the same except for a couple of little differences. And one is the bolt has the safety built into it on the long lee, and they moved it to the action on the short lee. So
the long lee was first, and the short lee was shortly thereafter?
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
But there was also they had Smith & Wesson collectors that had number ones, which are little 7-shot 22 shorts. They were built in late 1850s, early 1860s. So if you were a well-dressed Civil War soldier, you got a number one to go to battle with. They call them a 111, and that was the very first model of this number one. And they said there's about 200 of them made. They had, I think, numbers 14 and number 214 or something was the ends of what they were able to collect.
To find.
But they said that almost every one of them is really rough shaped. All of those were bought by somebody to use at the time, instead of where later in life you'll find number ones that are still new in the box.
Because they were bought to put away or bought for display.
So somebody bought them as a banker or something, put them in their desk drawer, and they really didn't get much use. They were there, but they didn't do anything. But it was funny because the very early ones had a different cylinder than the later versions of that same 200 run.
So why do you think that is? Or you don't know enough about them?
In the first couple, they must have figured out that there was either an easy way to make that cylinder or a tougher way to. The first one maybe didn't hold up and had a lot of issues with the locking system.
So potential manufacturing flaw or design change for ease of manufacturing.
They just got their hole, and they were brand new at making a pistol.
Got permission to use the hole once they got patented the hole. That's how that is. God, the guy who discovered the drill was right behind the hole.
Yeah, it's funny because White owned the hole, and he licensed it to Smith & Wesson, but he wouldn't let Colt use it. And today they're not allowed to. They can patent the process of putting that hole in, but they can't patent the hole. So
it is the dynamic, the shifting dynamic of patent laws and patent and design changes and things like that all kind of come together. It's pretty interesting. I was having a conversation with a guy from I think it was the Minnesota Collectors. Yeah, so
the guys with the long lead conversion units.
Maybe. I was talking to the other guy. So you were talking to the long lead guy. I was talking to the guy saying, the problem with being one of these collectors groups is that young people don't want to own stuff. And so we were having a stuff conversation.
They don't want to own stuff. I think that they're too poor to own stuff. There's a spot where when you start out, you either could live indoors or you can own stuff.
And so the older people get to own stuff. And then when the new guys start to own stuff, they can't afford the stuff that the older guys have because they're much deeper pockets.
Well, that's why there's new collector things all the time. So when the Russian rifles came in and the Chinese Mausers and all that stuff, it opens up a whole new market. And then even later, say what is those old little Raven 25s that were $30 years ago?
Right.
There's people who collect those. So you'll go to their house and they have 55 of them in every different color and flavor. And some have plastic grips and some have wood grips and some of them.
And some people are like, really? But really, there's a reason.
That's what they could afford at the time, and now they're the expert on Ravens, and they could write a book, and then other people would. That's what holds the Japanese rifles back. Is for years there was no books. The rifles looked so crappy. We held them in contempt.
We poo-pooed them.
You could go to a yard sale, buy them for $10. You give them to kids to play with. We played Army with Japanese rifles in the woods all the time because they were so cheap.
You had no ammo. You just had the rifle. But our parents.
That's another thing. There wasn't any ammo for those rifles, right. so
it was perfect for that. Our parents would let us play in the woods with a bayonet. I'm just saying. I'm not sure how we grew up to be adults.
In the '60s, there was places that were selling. If you bought like 5 cases of Japanese ammo. They would give you like 25 rifles to go with it.
There you go. So you and all your friends could, yes.
And the funny part, there's a ton of Japanese rifles here, but at the end of the war, we would put them on the deck of an aircraft carrier and run them out into the ocean and use a bulldozer and push them off into the water because we didn't need that many of them. We gave them the countries all around that area to use, and we chopped them up. We did everything we could do with them, and we still have
plenty of them.
How many million did they make?
I don't know, but a lot, an absolute lot.
They were saying like the Japanese at the end of the war, they didn't have wood, they didn't have steel, they didn't have anything. The people would actually tear the bridge down in town and walk a couple miles down the street to use another town's bridge, and then use that bridge to donate to the war effort. And just think how stingy we are today. If somebody took your bridge down,
that would not. There's being patriotic, and then there's you
gotta be kidding.
right. So it's affecting my lifestyle. I can't get my coffee. Right. That would be it. It'd slow me down. It takes 12 more minutes for me to get to Starbucks. So yes, that's exactly it. So we want pistols to come in every color so we can collect the entire set.
Start collecting the Sky pistol, because I think it comes in about 27 colors, kind of like Skittles.
Well, that and the Charter Arms, same.
Bad,
we'll be back right after this.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Okay, folks, we are back, and we have with us, well, Rob, who is going to do the history section. Let me tell you, last week we sat and we shared the mic with Charlie Cook because we were all in Texas together. And the one thing that Charlie had to say was he just could not believe that we did a history section with no notes, no anything. You just started going and nothing, absolutely nothing.
Well, when we were out at Shot this NRA this time,
right.
Walter has a brand new pistol. It's kind of funny because it says WMP on the side.
Oh, they're making such.
It looks like it says WIMP right down the side of it.
So they're good. Everybody's using the Wimpy Burger and Popeye.
It's a full size pistol because of the length of the 22 Magnum round to get through the magazine up through the grip, but it still shoots a 15-shot 22 Magnum. It's if it actually runs, it's great, and it's like one of the first successful ones out there because there's other companies that have tried it, but none of them could ever get them to run too good. Winchester came out with
why does the Magnum not run well? Is that what you're saying?
I think what it is that the case length is so long and the power is like minimal to allow it to eject itself.
Okay.
So if you have any kind of extra drag on it, now that long case slows it down to the speed that it can't function. You know what I'm saying?
So when it has a gun that's named Wimp and in your mind it's suspect as to whether it will or will not
But
run.
it's I mean, if it works, it's gonna be a real popular gun.
Okay.
If it's a jam-o-matic, as most of them are, then it'll be okay that they're out there, but it's still not popular. But Winchester brought this the Magnum round out in 1959. It was actually just a lengthened the Winchester rimfire. How many of you have ever seen a 22 WRF? Used to be a lot of like Remington pump guns were made in WRF. The Winchester 1890 was built in the WRF. Colt made some revolvers for it. There's a lot of Stevens single shot like favorites that were out there. But it wasn't a super popular thing, and by the 1960s it had almost been obsolete. You couldn't hardly find any ammo. And so they just lengthened the case out so that you couldn't put the Magnum rounds in the WRF guns and put it out there with jacketed end lead bullets and stuff. Ruger makes their single six. They put a cylinder with it so you can shoot both. Some of the 22 rifle companies, they jumped right on. Mossberg made one called a Chuckster. It was probably the most popular one for years.
So anything that is single shot, anything that is revolver, this is a great round. Anything that's semi-automatic has up to this point has not been overly successful.
It just has trouble with the mechanism in the 20 in having enough power to cycle the. And it wasn't really just until a couple of years ago that Remington and Remington and Ruger and them made rifles in a semi-automatic version.
Okay.
Some of those actually were very short-lived because they had feed issues, and they've been recalled, and some of them are quite collectible today. So if you bought a Ruger 1022 in a Magnum version, they were probably worth 5 or 10 times what you paid for it originally. There is some of the European ones that actually have been in business for a long time. They must work a little better, but they're also much more pricey than.
And you've not had an opportunity to like handle one and shoot
I don't.
one?
I don't get to shoot stuff like that too much, just because my friends are all. If they're going to get a big gun, they get a big gun, and not something like that. But it's funny because I've seen people where they shoot the regular 22s in the Magnum, and it doesn't always go off, but when it does go off, it usually splits the case down the side, and the accuracy isn't very good. So it's not that you can't, you shouldn't. It's you can, but you shouldn't.
Okay, yeah. So you can, and it won't hurt the gun.
Right.
But it won't.
And the other way around, you can't put the magnums into the 22 long rifle cylinder because the hole is too small. So it kind of works as its own little safety there.
Safety device to keep you from harming yourself or somebody else.
The Heritage makes a little 22. They're relatively cheap price, and then I think a cylinder is $29. So if you buy the Heritage and you want the gun, the little paper in the box, you just call them and they'll send you a cylinder to fit it, and you can shoot the 22 Magnum.
Okay, because they can drop ship that because it is not a firearm, so it's an accessory.
Right. If you're hunting and that, the 22 Magnum's got a lot more power than the standard.
So what would you hunt with 22 Magnum?
Well, like squirrels, raccoons, stuff like this. That trappers would possibly use it, especially if you're going to trap something that's bigger, like coyotes or something like that, instead of using a standard 22 on them.
Well, there's things that will bite you.
Right. So it's it just gives you one step up in power without going to a centerfire gun is all.
Okay. Something to a bigger gun.
How many of you knew that it's been here since 1959?
I didn't. I mean, that's one of the struggles, is when you go to the ammo shelf and you start to look at the 22s. There's 22 shorts, there's 22 long rifles, there's 22 longs, there's 22 Win Mag, there's 22 Magnum.
There's caps and BB caps, and in the past there used to be longs and extra longs and super extra longs. And
so sometimes it gets really gets confusing, and the more that you interact with guns, the more confusing it gets. It's sort of like it gets more and more and more confusing, and then until one day you're like,
well, they named the LR, the 22 long rifle, so people got a pistol, and then it says long rifle. That's more confusing there.
Right, and there's people who call 22 long rifle 22 longs when they're obviously not.
Well, the short came out in time for the Civil War, and when the 1890 Winchester came out, they were looking to increase the power, so they actually stuck with the 29 grain bullets that the short had, but they put it in a long rifle length case, so they made the long at that point. So, and the way the 1890 Winchester works is the hole that comes out of the magazine, the bullet is only that long. So if the bullet's too long, it won't work. If it's too short, you get 2 bullets or a bullet and a half, so it jams the works up. And then the long rifle has that long case, but now it has a 40 grain bullet, so the bullet's like almost twice as long as the standard. So
I had a girl come and take one of my classes with a 22 short because she said that her husband bought it for thinking that it was the gun she could handle. She could handle a whole lot more than that, and it wasn't necessarily consistent as a shooter. Thus, it was not a great choice for personal defense.
Well, Beretta made a lot of those back in the day.
Well, that would be that. Hey, right after this commercial break, we're going to have Rob Morris from Self Defense Gun Stories on, and we're going to talk about women and guns. Imagine.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a Range Master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Suffolcool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
Hi, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society podcast. I wanted to let you know that the show you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can check out all the shows on the network by going to selfdefenseradio.net or tune in for more on Self-Defense Mondays on Karma Radio, krmaradio.com.
Okay, so we are back, and with us we have Rob Morse, and you know Rob Morse. Rob Morse is our Rob Morse is part of the Self-Defense Gun Stories. Rob Morse is part of the Polite Society podcast. He's a writer, he's a blogger, and generally he is a deep thinker. So, hey Rob, thanks for joining us.
I thought I was a slow talker. Hi, Rob. Hi, Amanda.
Well, there is that. So, slow talking, deep thinking, Rob Morse. So,
well, talk about courage. I'm so glad to be on Eye on the Target Radio because you guys are carrying news you can't get because some other station manager goes, oh, wow, I know it's true, but it might frighten my boss. So thank you guys for telling the truth.
We try very hard to bring interesting news and things that we think that our listeners will enjoy.
My boss is kind of sketchy too.
Being self-employed, you don't always get along with the boss. I understand.
I think he's jagging me is where I think he's going with that. But
I know.
We'll just say, it takes a lot to keep him in line, right?
No, I'm not taking that job. So, but you guys are telling our listeners things that they don't know because the media won't tell them. We have 1.6 million examples of armed self-defense each year, and the average guy on the street doesn't know that because the media won't tell him.
Yeah, they don't. So we sat and listened to Representative Nadler just recently say that giving a woman a gun makes her less safe, not more safe, because, we can't handle those things, and somebody's going to hurt us with it. Sorry, that was my sarcastic voice. So,
Yeah, I recognized it.
so Rob, you do self-defense gun stories every week, and do you see that there's a difference between whether it's a dude with a gun or a woman with a gun?
No. Other than women tend to listen in firearms instruction, and the guys tend to puff up and do the monkey dance when they get threatened. As self-defense, go ahead. Yeah.
I think, too, that the woman's more likely to just let you have the whole magazine full instead of waiting to see if you're going to stop and drop or any of that stuff. It's like, I still got bullets. We're playing.
Yeah, we're at the spot where when we decide that you're stopping, we mean it. You're stopping with everything we've got.
Well, my podcast, Self-Defense Gun Stories, literally started because I was at a training class and some of us were going, hey, did you hear about this grandma who stopped a criminal? And one of the instructors looked at me and said, yeah, but was grandma lucky or was she good? And I went, that's a question I have to answer because a lot of us don't know. What's the difference between being lucky versus good?
Well,
I think that no matter how you go, lucky is the winner every time. I mean, you could be good, but if you're not lucky, it's not going well for you.
Well, but the more you okay, Robert, Amanda, you are my inspiration. I find that the more I practice, the luckier I get.
Right. The harder I work, the luckier I get. Is how that all works.
It's just easier to be lucky. That's all.
Yes.
It's just easier to be. Yeah, it's easier to be lucky, but it's not as reliable. Can I tell you a story that's got nothing to do with luck? Well,
yeah, let's roll with it.
Maybe it does. What do we got time? Okay, we got a few.
We're good.
This one came out of Charleston, West Virginia, and a gal's attending an outdoor party. It turns out to be a combined graduation and birthday party in an apartment complex. And it drags on. People are having a good time. There are 36, maybe 40 people there, a lot. And it's after dark. Somebody drives through the apartment parking lot too fast, and everybody's saying, hey, slow down. You can see us here. We're not causing trouble. Well, the driver takes offense. And he comes back in a few minutes, parks his car, gets in the back seat, and starts shooting at people at the party. Thank goodness someone was there who was armed, an ordinary concealed carrier. This gal wasn't in the pool, hadn't been drinking, so she decided to carry. Think of all the people who might have been carried but said, oh, not today, I might get wet at the pool party. And she stops the attack right there before anyone is injured. This could have been a mass murder. She, hangs around, talks to the police, and the chief of detectives said, wow, if it weren't for you. Is that lucky or good? Is that lucky or good, Robert? I can't decide.
Even if she was good, she was lucky that she was there at that time and had her gun instead of leaving it in the car or something.
We're all fantastically lucky that she was there. But those stories happen thousands of times a day. Women defend themselves over 2,000 times a day. Over 300 of those were sexual assaults that didn't happen. And, unless the sexual assault happened, it doesn't get recorded that way. So,
right.
Wow.
And almost of anything doesn't get recorded or reported.
Well, it's like this story that I was just telling. It was a little blurb in the corner of the paper. It didn't hit the headlines, and nobody hardly talked about it or anything. And it's kind of slipped through the cracks because they had just shot up a grocery store. They had shot up a doctor's office. They had shot up a school.
Right.
And
so those are the ones that get the news. We're sitting there looking at it, and what do they say? Between 2 and 3 million self-defense gun uses a year that are underreported or not reported or reported in some sections.
What they used to say was that a lot of times it's that day that nothing happened, so you pulled your gun out, the guy took off and nothing happened, so you didn't call the police because I don't need that kind of headache. And so nobody even knows about how many times that just the presence of a gun has stopped an attack or kept someone on the straight and narrow. Or
well, Rob, I want to amplify that. You know, Grandma's sitting there. She hears the guy pry open her screen door, breaks her back door, reaches in, undoes the latch, comes inside, and she goes, takes her firearm out of the little knitting bag there and is sitting with in her hand and goes, I have a gun, and I've called the police. And the guy runs away. It's never recorded as a defensive gun use. But the thug and Grandma both think that history got changed because she had a gun.
Exactly. I was reading today about a family that lives in an HOA community where the HOA inspector was overzealous, and Dad was gone. Mom is in the kitchen when somebody is rattling at her back door trying to get into her house. She pulls her gun out, goes to the back door, makes him lay on the ground with his hands spread out while she calls the police. He is the HOA inspector, and so he's trying to now get her thrown out of the community because she pulled her gun on him. The police come. The police are going, well, dude, you know, you are the inspector, but there is such a thing as personal privacy, personal property, and asking for permission. So it blew up into a big thing. But I'm telling you, there's probably a lot of people who live in an HOA who would love to have the HOA inspector now fearful of them. So,
but I want to go back up to this story for just a second.
Yeah.
We've got, 20 million carry license, about 17 million of us carry every day, 1 out of 12, 1 out of 13. And this defender got up this morning. It was ordinary day. She's ordinary. And she went to bed a superhero. But how about the mom? Similar situation to what we talked about. Somebody breaks in the door. The mom gets between the bad guy and her kids.
Mm-hmm.
She is a superhero, and it'll never make the news.
No, it won't. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to protect myself and my family. And one of the big things to convince women is to not make it to protect my family and then, oh yeah, maybe myself. Women are so much more willing to use their gun to defend someone else than they are to use it to defend themselves.
Well, I think that everybody's that way. I always said when we were teaching concealed carry, Rob, you have a certain trigger. I could beat you to a certain point when you will retaliate. But if I was to beat your wife, how much would you take before you retaliate?
The trigger moves forward a whole lot.
Your trigger point is going to be much touchier with me beating on her than I'm beating on you, right? Same with the kids.
Infinitely true.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody has
this. Look, you grab them, you've just touched a grizzly bear.
Right, and you still have both hands free. Well, so I think that makes so much sense. And when you plant that seed to people to say, look, when they are going after you just as much as they're going after your family, if something were to happen to you, it would destroy your entire family unit. So even though you're looking at it going, I'm going to do everything to save them, it doesn't help them to not have a father. It doesn't help them to not have a mother. It doesn't help them for you to put yourself as a secondary person. So working on making sure that you've got good gear and a firearm at the ready or pepper spray or whatever your personal defense thing is. Rob, will you hang on? We're going to go to a commercial break and we will be back right after these messages.
Honest citizens like you protect themselves every day. We talk about it every week on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Were these gun owners lucky Or did they have a plan? How should we defend the people we love? We discuss recent examples on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Put us in your pocket.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to davenportguns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Seffacool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Writing Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Writing Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Folks, joining us is Rob Morris, and Rob Morris is the writer of the blog Slow Facts, and he's also the producer, director, and star of Self-Defense Gun Stories, which is a podcast, a snack food of podcast, if you will. Someone coined that term. A 20-minute podcast that features Rob and another firearms instructor, and he has a rotation of them, and he shares 4 different self-defense gun stories every week, talking about gun use and defensive gun use, and getting you to stop and think about where would you be in that circumstance or in that scenario. And your podcast is in the top 0.5% of all podcasts. Is that correct, Rob?
Yes, it is. Yeah, according to Listen Notes, I'm way up there more than I deserve, but okay.
You know, the thing is, some of that, like you were you were talking about the grandma who has her pistol in her knitting bag or whatever, stuff like this. If you get some of these Democratic things where they are going to force you to lock the gun up if you're not actually using it, then grandma doesn't have the gun in her knitting bag or in her handbag or in the swan planter by the television.
Well, that was we had a student who was in our class on the 30th anniversary of her 39th birthday. So she was 69 years old, and she kept her gun in the swan planter by the front door. That was it. So it was at the ready should she need it when she went to the front door. So, and she had another one she kept in her purse, just like it, exactly just like it. But it was a.
Well, she got the one and she liked it so much she bought 5 more, so they were placed all over the place. So, but
she sounds a little bit like you two actually.
A little bit prepared.
Well, it's always good to have the same equipment. That way, then you don't have to worry about whether the safety goes up or down, or if it has the safety or if it doesn't have the safety. So if everything is exactly the same, when you pick it up, it operates the way you planned on it.
Right. But let's
go. You have 3 different purses, and you've got the same gun in each purse. You don't have to remember which purse you put your gun in. It's yes, of course.
We're all good with that.
Unless you're going through the TSA.
Right.
Thank you.
They get a new purse. I'm just saying. Not the voice of experience, but I always start with a fresh purse before I fly. So,
can we jump into another DGU?
Yes, let's.
Okay,
and
this one came
for
up.
our listeners, a DGU is defensive gun use. And they shorten it down to DGU just so that they sound all cool and everything. But
self-defense gun story.
Right. There you go. Go ahead, Rob.
Out of South Bend, Indiana, you're walking down the street. A man rides his bike past you. He stops, turns around. You're a young woman, and it's uncomfortable to be approached by homeless men. And this homeless stranger asks you for money, and you politely say no. He presses. He goes, "Look, I really need the money." And this time he pulls a gun out of his pants and points it at you. Well, that changes everything. You run away and hide behind a dumpster. As you're running away, you draw your gun, turn and point it at your attacker. You shout for help, and people from across the street see you. Your attacker looks around, sees your gun, and he says, "Nope, not what I planned," and rides away. You call 911. You put your gun away and give a statement to the police when they arrive. Officers interview people at the gas station across the street. They arrest a nearby suspect. Let's face it, the cops have seen him on the street many times. And you say, "Yep, same bike, same guy. He's carrying a BB gun, pistol. And he's arrested for intimidation." You're arrested for carrying a firearm without a license. At the time of your defense in Indiana, permitless carry had passed and been signed into law, but it didn't take effect for another 60 days. The prosecutor goes, "Okay, by the time this gets to court, or even if she's convicted by the time she serves, never mind, you're released and not charged." The problem I have with this young lady is she may now have a conviction on her record.
You know, and that is happening in places where you get the soundbite news that says Ohio passed constitutional carry. And everybody's like, yippee! And they don't know that it doesn't go into effect until mid-June.
Or
one is January
1st
of 2023. So they're talking about it now for January of 2023. And so people are getting the bit without getting all of the facts. And so that's hard. It's sort of like when Ohio passed their concealed carry, they modified their law. We're going to say, both hands full. A couple different, it was because they passed it in 2004, they modified it in 2007, 8, 11, 13, 15, 17, right, and ad nauseum. So they kept modifying the law. But if you got your license, you never got notification of a change. And so in Ohio's case, the changes relaxed the gun laws. But in some states, that's not the case.
Right.
So how do you make sure that if you're a card-carrying good guy, that you're indeed a card-carrying good guy, and not just the good guy that missed the note that you still needed to have the card?
I think it was Oregon that just repealed their what is it? All the whole state has to go by the state law instead of each city.
Okay. Yeah.
Not reciprocity.
Yeah, I know the words you're thinking.
Anyhow, they had it.
Yes.
They had it, and then they took it away. But very few people know they took it away from them, and so.
So now you can live in a community that has more stringent laws than the state without knowing that you did.
To back up to our story here, this defender reminded me of you guys, because I've heard you tell me it's called the firearms class, but we teach you to run because it's when running doesn't work that then you can use your firearm.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, oh, I wondered if this was one of your students. Now, Indiana, Ohio, all the way from down here in Louisiana, they look almost the same.
They're close. They're close. And that's the beauty of being a firearms instructor, is you can instruct from somebody from another state because it carries over in almost all of the states' circumstances. Not every, but in a lot of the states. If you get a nationally recognized firearms training certificate, then it meets the criteria of what you need to do.
25 states have some form of this constitutional carry. Is
right.
I wonder how uniform those 25 different states treat that law.
Well, some call it permitless carry, some call it constitutional carry, so there may be a little bit different with that.
A spot where you're allowed to go into the bar if you don't have a beer, are you allowed to go to the school, or you're allowed to go to the courthouse, you're allowed to what's the rules? And if you're stopped by a policeman in West Virginia versus in Montana versus in Arizona, is it all treated the same, or is it 25 different rules?
It's 25 different sets of rules until there's a national law, and they fully expect 2 more states to pop in 2023. And I would expect more than 2, but we'll see.
We don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do, but there's a good chance they may overstep everybody and just say, this is what we think.
So, so we're waiting. Some people who are knowledgeable say that the Bruin versus New York State Rifle and Pistol Association, that case may be out this week. So everybody is... We know it's supposed to happen before the end of the month, so we'll see.
Right.
Rob Morris, Self-Defense Gun Stories, and the Slow Facts blog. Look him up. If you're a podcaster, if you're a podcast listener, find Self-Defense Gun Stories, and you will love listening to the
you
Snack
ask
Food.
yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
everything Second Amendment, concealed carry, the latest gear, reciprocity, legislation, the right to self-protection, and it shall not be infringed. This is Eye on the Target Radio with your hosts, Rob and Amanda.
Okay, so we are back, and one of our listeners says that a concealed carry national law give the federal government the power that they don't currently have, and so it's really, this question of states' rights versus federal rights, and so Gun Websites says this, and I agree with him. I think that there is very much a point that once the federal government gives you something, they then have the right to restrict it,
Maybe
lock it down.
Shall not be infringed is the code word for all that,
Well, there would be that. So a constitutional carry on a federal level, I think, is a concealed carry where there's restrictions and laws. Probably not so, because you've heard it here a lot. We're in a fight for states' rights. And so each time we look at this, we're fighting what's the states' rights issues versus what's the federal rights issues, and how does that happen.
Won't be long, and they'll put a rifle rack at the end of your table when you're at the restaurant, right?
We see that in other countries. We really do. I'm holding the hand of my toddler.
I would feel so much better if my FAL traveled with me.
Sling. That's why they make a sling. Just make it a sling. So speaking of having a gun travel with you, we went to the range on Friday. So Rob has a friend, and the friend periodically fills in here if I'm traveling or whatever, and he, one, loves to train, two, loves to train across the country, and then brings things back to practice and try. So we were at the range practicing, things as simple as getting up out of a chair, moving to cover. And
it's funny because he brings his truck, and it's got all kinds of different things in it.
Oh, you never know.
It's got chairs, tables,
whatever,
padded suits, whatever.
So here I was supposed to knee him, punch him a couple times. He's got this big pad made to knee and punch so that I wasn't abusing him.
Gloves are like catcher's mitts, but
you punch them.
So he punched my hand, and then it punched me in the face right afterwards.
So I
wasn't ready for that.
It was a good thing you were wearing a mitten, right? So it's interesting. It causes you to think, and so and we're not there for hours and hours. It's a couple hours every Friday, and it just refreshes thoughts and processes of what do you have to do and what can you do and how can you do it.
Well, when you go up against the timer, or when you get to see a video of you doing something like this, you get to see real feedback at that point. It's like, what did I do that for? What was my other arm doing that?
Why was my hands doing this? Kind of like I was doing the doggy paddle before I went to do anything else, right? Yes.
It used to be when we would draw, Mike, like he would flare up like these big dragons that they show you in the lizards where they get up on their hind feet to run.
And yes.
So he would flare all up and do all the stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing that for? So he's watching the thing. So once we cut that out, that cut quite a bit of time out of his jaw from.
Well, and it's really funny because he's like, okay, so they say, whoever they is, when he's doing all this research, they say that this drill, you need to work on it until you get it below 5 seconds. So we do it. We're like, okay, you want us to do blah, blah, blah. Yes. So the first time mine was a little more than 5 seconds because I wasn't wearing a belt with my holster.
So the holster comes out with it, so she has to shuck it off and throw it.
So I pull up, and then there's this holster, right? So I have to fling the holster and then hit the target. But once I fixed that problem, then I was under.
One of mine, I had loaded my pistol, but I did not load the chamber. So when I drew the gun, nothing happened. So I had to
get back into action
to shoot.
But those are the things, and so it's like, what did you learn from this? I learned I need to always wear, if I'm using this holster, I always wear a belt. You
need to think about this stuff ahead of time, and just because you thought that you loaded your pistol doesn't mean you did. So
right. There you go.
So yep. So you double check your stuff, and like I always say, never holster an empty gun because you're gonna later on think that
you were carrying it for a week and a half with no bullets, and then you're like,
where my bullets went.
Exactly. So so you've got a story over here that is not aging gracefully. We'll just say.
It was funny because I dug through my pile, and these two stories from before, so mid-May, and one of them is that Senate Democrats shy away from pushing vote on gun control. So they're talking about how Joe Biden is wanting to get his anti-gun wish list going and do something with it, and how they're seeing it in this election year as a loser.
As a loser, that the Democrats already feel like they're in a big struggle to maintain.
The second story, same time frame, is a new poll shows that declining support for gun control. What you're seeing, we're setting records for how many people are buying a gun, and ammo is not available and stuff. So I had seen somewhere the other day that ATF says that they were making, domestically, we're making 10.5 million guns a year.
Okay.
And, I think 10.5 million guns. It was a record-setting number. We've never made that many guns. Yet there's no guns. That wasn't including the number of guns that are imported from Turkey and Yugoslavia and all the different places that are making guns and shipping them in. So if we're setting records on bringing guns here and building guns, and yet we don't have guns to buy, somebody's buying those guns.
Right. So the president is saying, "Come on, man, we need reasonable gun control." But
now you're watching. I mean, and there's been a series of unfortunate shootings that, depending on which team you play for, you may find suspect that they happen just now as the new 9mm lung removing bullets or whatever are revealed by the president. And
right there's a push that says it's what's driving this, and is it a chain reaction, if you will, that when one happens then another one happens, and when it comes to the height of conversation, does that drive that momentum for people who have nefarious thoughts to continue to jump in and to create more mayhem?
When they look at these people and who they are, some of them know each other, some of them are they're well outside of their means in the way of stuff that they're carrying.
So
their
finances,
truck and their car, the amount of ammo and magazines, and the type of gun and sights and all that stuff that they have are way outside of a regular person's part-time job. Actually, not much information came out about the Las Vegas shooting because they buried that pretty quick. But they're saying that the Daniel Defense rifles that this guy that shot this Rob School up in Texas is the same exact configuration of rifle that was used in the Las Vegas. And according to what I've heard, Daniel Defense says that those were built for an overseas contractor, and they're illegal in the United States because they have a vertical hand grip and some other pieces on them.
So Daniel Defense, which one, there is a statement going around that says that Daniel Defense does not have an FFL, so they're just selling guns willy-nilly without doing any background checks, which is absolutely bunk and completely made up, yet it is making the circuit.
Right, and the way that the manufacturer works is he doesn't sell it to the direct customer. He sells it to a distributor, and they sell it to a gun shop who
then sells it to. Yeah, so it's a couple steps down, a couple links down the chain to get to the retail purchaser. The other thing that Daniel Defense said is that they will fully cooperate with investigations and the government to find out what traceability, how he got it, where he got it, what happened, and how it got into that. Because there is, on newer guns, it is traceable. I mean, there is a path because Daniel Defense knows, based on the serial number, where they shipped it, when they shipped it, who it went to, and how it moves. So as we hear more, we'll know more about was this that configuration, was this another. Sometimes the information that comes out, there are people who think that they're being cute by creating false statements that they put out there so that they can then prove people wrong later, because now you've got egg on your face because you reported something that was not correct. So you've got to move so carefully with the information that you get, that the information has to be verified 2, 3, 4 times from different directions, so it's not that everybody's quoting back to the same original quote that was wrong, that it just gets spread out and comes back. So some of it we don't know. We really don't know. But watch what's happening with your politicians. We'll be right back.
Honest citizens like you protect themselves every day. We talk about it every week on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Were these gun owners lucky, or did they have a plan? How should we defend the people we love? We discuss recent examples on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Put us in your pocket.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to davenportguns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Hi, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society podcast. I wanted to let you know that the show you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can check out all the shows on the network by going to selfdefenseradio.net or tune in for more on Self-Defense Mondays on Karma Radio, krmaradio.com.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Suffolk and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Okay, so one of the places that we go for information to share with you guys is to Cam Edwards, and Cam Edwards writes for Bearing Arms, and another place we go is Dr. John Lott from Crime Research, and so Crime Preventative Research Center, so crimeresearch.org. Those two have the facts, just the facts. Right? So when those two team up together to make an article, it's like an E.F. Hutton thing. We all listen. We want to hear what Cam Edwards and Dr. John Lott have to say together. And one of the things that they are talking about is the declining popularity of gun control. And so people are really, they're using your term.
Well, you think about it, what was it, a month and a half ago that the Russians attacked the Ukraine, and everybody wanted to give their guns to the Ukraine. Then all of a sudden now it's not good to have the gun again. So how do you play this on both sides?
Well, they're having a hard time with that because people are still seeing that here's a grandmother in the Ukraine that's learning how to shoot a long gun, because she knows that that's going to be the only way that she can defend herself and her family. So the other thing is that people have this inaccurate belief of how frequently violent crimes involve guns. And so they're seeing the 24-hour news cycle, and they're thinking that it's getting worse, and it's getting worse, and it's getting worse. And so right now, less than 20% of violent crime, so crime where violence occurs, it's not just a robbery, it's not just a theft, but someone gets harmed. Less than 20% of violent crime involves a firearm. And the other 80%, it involves a vehicle. It involves an axe or a hammer, or, people are creative in how evil they can be.
I had seen the stats on how many people use hammers. It was like, that was unbelievable how many.
Right.
It isn't like we just go around carrying a hammer with us every day.
In case you need to hammer something. I don't know. But it's really interesting to see what is happening. But as more people pick up guns, then more people are vocal about their concern for an increase in gun control and restrictions. So right now, the politicians are trying to say, well, if I can't pass this and I can't pass that, at least let me make it to where the legal age is 21 to buy a long gun.
Well,
so they're trying to erode that to there, but they're trying to move voting down to 16.
Well, Jerry Nadler was saying that your brain is not developed until you're 21.
Well, then why are we putting them in the military? Why are we allowing major life decisions such as any of the transition surgeries, or the getting your tubes tied, or any of those type of barrier blocking medical treatments?
We're doing it because before they could start to think clearly, maybe.
I don't know, but why are we allowing voting? So
what's that old thing about kids get out of your house and you still know it all?
Exactly. Right. Don't wait. So yeah.
Every day I forget a little bit more.
it's an interesting place that we're at, because there's so many agendas that are being pushed that nobody quite knows which one to push next. And so pay attention to the fact that the Second Amendment is a constitutional right. It's not, they try to equate it to cars, they try to equate it to all these other things that are not listed as part of the Constitution yet.
Right. I mean, they're like, well, you got to have a license to drive a car, but it doesn't say anywhere in the Constitution about your car or your use of the highway.
Well, and even if you said, well, they didn't have cars then, they don't list about your horse, nor
buggies
or
wagons
or the paths, or the, so whatever was.
You mean that Teamsters back then didn't need a CDL that cost a lot of money?
Right. None of that. None of that. So there's an article that's written by Dean Weingarten about constitutional carry bills. And so there have been several states that have passed constitutional carry and then got them vetoed. So actually 14 and 14 states originally passed constitutional carry and then it was vetoed. Some of them have gone back and repassed
It's kind
them.
of funny because they're saying like the Democrat, if it's a Democrat governor who vetoes it, usually there's enough votes to override and they get it anyways. If it's a Republican governor, then they usually have to wait till either an election cycle or until the next governor comes on duty because
they're not going to push them.
They can't get it through. So
yeah, so Montana's governor blocked constitutional carry 3 times. It got passed through the House and Senate and got blocked 3 different times. But we are at 25 states, and so they assume, looking at the statisticians, if you will, looking at it, say that at least 2 in 2023 will be passed. You tie this to whatever's happening with Bruin versus New York State Rifle and Pistol Association. Refresh everybody on what Bruin potentially can be telling folks.
Well, it's originally it's set up as a test for New York State because they aren't doing concealed carry licenses like they say they should, and so they were suing on the fact that they should be allowed to move around with their gun and go places and do things. We were talking to some of them. If you wanted to take your rifle and go to a match somewhere, they tell you just to rent a rifle when you get there because there's no reason for you to take your gun out of your house.
So there's trainers in New York State that cannot leave the state with their firearms to teach a class in another state, to compete professionally in another state. So look at it this way. I mean, if you are a professional athlete in any other sport, have you ever heard the government say, well, guess what? You're a race car driver. You'll just have to rent a car down there because you can't take it.
A couple of years back, the English couldn't train to shoot for the shooting events in the Olympics. They had to go to France to train.
They weren't allowed to train in their own state. Well, I know that in the world, the world shotgun competitions, Russia was not allowed to bring guns in, and so they had to borrow them. When we come back, we will have Jim Irvine.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3 and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand, that understood the difference between feminine and functional, a brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Writing Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Writing Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
So, folks, we are back, and we have another guest for you on this hour, and that guest would be Jim Irvine from the organization, Ohio-based organization Faster Saves Lives. So, I don't know if you've heard that Ohio just passed a law that allows teachers, once again, to carry in Ohio schools. There's certain criteria and things that they have to do, but we will once again be able to have another layer of defense in the Ohio schools. So, Jim Irvine, thanks so much for joining us on Eye on the Target Radio.
Amanda, it's an honor always to be with you. Glad to be here.
Oh, no problem. Rob and I love it when we have you on the air. So, first, let's fill our folks in on what happened in Ohio and why did we have to pass this new law when we had armed teachers in schools?
Well, going back to last century, schools could authorize anybody they want in Ohio. They had complete authority to do it, and it's been rocking along since 10 years, since Sandy Hook, without any real issues, until Bloomberg comes into town and files a Supreme Court, or files a lawsuit against Madison, goes through all the courts, gets to the Supreme Court, where he's also been effective electing people. And we have the Supreme Court, extreme judicial activism, say the law doesn't mean what it clearly says. And now the any other person means, law enforcement, even though it never says that. It has nothing to do with that section. So, but the point is, elections have consequences. And we let some bad judges get in there, and it's going to hurt. So fast forward a couple of years, the legislature this week finally passed House Bill 99, Representative Thomas Hall's bill, which it doesn't put it back the way it was. There's some things that I don't like as much, but there's a lot of other stuff I think that's really big improvements for Ohio. So, yeah, schools are going to be able to authorize people, their staff, to carry firearms again. It's going to be overseen by the state. There'll be certain instructors will have to get approved in curriculums, and that's all being set up. But also it comes with a school, I forget what they call it, but mobile training units. So it's going to be 16 divisional stuff. These guys will be able to go out and work with the schools, do site assessments, do security audits and stuff like that, give recommendations, and also a new $100 million has been made available for schools to do improvements on stuff. So it's a big overreaching security improvement on the safety of our schools. So a lot of stuff's happened in the last 2 weeks.
It's amazing. I mean, I'm so glad that that something moved forward. Because Rob and I were both in the FASTER class the day that you'd gotten the horrible news that the Supreme Court had decided the case and had decided it in an activism sort of direction. And so talk a little bit about what FASTER does and who FASTER is, because every time there is something horrific that happens and people are like, somebody ought to do something, I was like, FASTER saves lives, go look them up. Go look and see what they're doing. They have been doing for 10 years.
Yeah, it's outside of raising my own kids, this is really the neatest thing I've been involved with. So FASTER is an acronym. It stands for Faculty, Administrator, Safety, Training, and Emergency Response. Because if we don't put the response in there, no training really matters. So that's the problem with law enforcement. They've got lots of training, but they're not responding in time. They can't. They're not there. And it's not law enforcement's job. So this program was put together by parents, teachers, school stuff, but also when it comes to safety, security on that side, our nation's and really our world's top experts. Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman on mindset stuff. John Benner had been doing teaching school resource officers this stuff for going back probably over 20 years now. Some really incredible doctors putting together our medical stuff. So it's a program that puts together our nation's top experts. We built the program, and then our foundation really facilitates it and links school staff, or it could be church staff or business owners too. But it was really designed for schools, and still that's the majority of our customers are schools, and teach them how to deal with an act of killing. The bottom line is we cannot. If you look at heart attacks, somebody's having a heart attack, they're not going to live. You're going to dial 911, but they're not going to live long enough until they get in the building, unless you put an AED on them and get that heart going again. If somebody's allergic to a bee sting or a peanut allergy and they're going into anaphylactic shock, you need to dial 911. You need an ambulance. But they can't get in time to save that life unless you use an EpiPen or otherwise administer epinephrine. That's why we have this stuff in our schools. Well, guess what? If somebody's standing there in your room shooting your children down, you need 911. You need the police and medics. But they cannot get there in time to save the next person about to be shot. Everyone knows that. That is common sense. It is the school's job. They have a legal and moral authority to protect the children in their custody, not law enforcement's job. And then they also need to be able to treat the injuries once the scene is stabilized, instead of letting kids bleed out and die, which is the common practice in our schools today, which is negligence. And worse than that, they put it in writing, if that's their policy.
It sounds horrible, but what happens is that, as well-meaning as you are, if you are not trained in stop the bleed and in trauma care, then there's not a lot you can do besides wipe the sweat off their brow and maybe hold a wound. And so what you're hoping for is that the EMTs and the medical come in and help you in time, and yet the police are making the scene not secure enough, and they don't believe it's safe enough to send in the medical, so they hold them outside, and they will hold them for anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes while they make sure that the scene is secure. So, I mean, if you look at the Parkland story, why Meadow died, it's a two-part why. And lack of medical treatment is part of it.
Texas, where the parents couldn't go into school, there was a lot of things going on that the police were kind of blockading and wouldn't let anybody access to the school.
Right.
It's happened over and over and over. And it's funny because it's not funny, it's sad. I chide our educators. Look, if we look at law enforcement and how they've dealt with active killers over 50 years, we see they keep changing their tactics. They do after-action reviews, and they change stuff because they don't like losing people on their watch. They don't like failure. When we look at our medical community, we see they have completely changed what they taught us in tourniquets when we were kids. It's all totally different now because knowledge has changed, and they don't like losing people on their watch. And when we look at education, knowing that the root definition of learning is a change in behavior, and knowing that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting a different result, what we see in education is, well, they haven't changed anything. I mean, they've changed little things. They have. They put in cameras and radios, and we've got better locks and stuff. But where it comes to stopping a killer, they really don't have anything different than we do 50 years ago. And why are enlightened educators the last ones to learn, the last ones to change their behavior? It is not okay to treat cancer like we did 30 years ago. It's malpractice. It is not okay to treat school safety like we did 30 years ago. I don't care how nice your neighborhood is.
Right. Well, and part of it is, I mean, as you talk to individual teachers, you know, they will give their life for their students. They are creating their own little packages of things that they think may help them, but they're not getting help from the institution thereof. So as well-meaning as that individual teacher is, the system is broken and they are on their own.
Yeah, a lot of times we've got teachers who want to go out and do this, and the schools are actually obstructing getting the training and stuff. We have offered for 10 years, we've offered free training, and district after district goes, no. Now a lot have. We've worked with several hundred districts, but that's still a minority of our school districts. Mm-hmm. And so, and there's also schools like huge districts, Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati. I mean, they have resources lots of other districts don't have. So they don't need to work with us because they've got all kinds of other stuff. Now, maybe they're good or maybe they're bad. I don't know. But the majority of districts need some help in this. The other thing is, so we've got schools, you got a high school kid goes, I don't want to learn that. And the teachers don't go, well, you know what? Tell you what, you get to choose what you think is interesting and what you think you need to learn. I mean, that's ridiculous. We would never let high school students do that. Why on earth do we let our school boards and our superintendents and our principals go, I'm really not interested in that safety thing. I don't really want to know about armed staff. I don't want to know about medical stuff and treating stuff like that. I'm not worried about that. How dare they tell the parents they don't want to learn, and yet you're going to demand our kids learn whatever it is that you want to teach them? It's a complete upside down hypocrisy, and we got to call it on it.
And the other part to it is that when they flip that, when they get called on it and they flip it, then they make it sound like you are insisting that they demand that every teacher be armed.
Yes, which has never been the case, and we don't want that. The most people in the school building don't want to carry a gun, don't want to do any of this stuff. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with any of those people. They're great teachers, they're great counselors, they're great whatever the heck they do at the school. They don't have to change it. Then I don't say they don't have to change a thing, but they don't have to do this. If this isn't their thing, hey, maybe medical's their thing. You don't want to injure somebody. How about saving somebody? A lot of more people would do that, and you need more people trained on medical than you do carrying guns. But everybody in the building does need to change a little bit and be aware that, hey, this is a threat. It's a threat to every single district in the country, every single one. Our experts say there's somebody thinking about it. Most of them won't act, but there's somebody thinking about it. Look for ways, look for things that don't belong. Be proactive in looking for a kid who needs help. And you know what? Talk to them and give them that help. A lot of times that intervention ahead of time, we can cut things off and short circuit it and go, hey, this kid needs somebody to talk to. This kid has an issue. This kid's in a bad home and he just needs some help. Or maybe we need law enforcement. This is a bad kid and needs law enforcement action. Whatever it is, we can stop it before it gets there. We can see open doors. We can remind each other on the safety stuff that we get lax on because of complacency, because nothing's happened yet. So that is human nature.
Hold steady. We're going for a commercial break. We will be back right after that. We'll talk about human nature and what we're doing about it.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to DavenportGuns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Suffolk and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
Okay, so we are back, and we're back with Jim Irvine of Faster. Faster Saves Lives. Jim, what is the website for Faster?
FasterSavesLives.org.
Okay, so it's really hard to remember. Faster Saves Lives and FasterSavesLives.org. So, Faster is a group of, it's a not-for-profit, and it's a group of volunteers, and then it gets some funding so that it can help people take the classes. So how does that all work?
Yeah, so it's a nonprofit organization, and we run this program, and it costs a lot of money to hire world-class trainers. And years ago, I realized, hey, the teacher can't afford this, and the school district can't afford it, and heck, the community can't afford it because they haven't sent their law enforcement to this stuff yet. So what I couldn't afford to lose is I can't afford to lose another classroom of kids. I just find that absolutely unacceptable. And I said, we'll make it available to them. And a friend of mine said, how? And I said, I don't know, but we have to. So we have raised on our own, I don't even know where we're at now. I know several years ago we had raised and given out over $1 million in grants to school staff so that they could attend this training. We actually impressed some legislators and the governor enough that we got put in the state budget. So we do get a little bit of money from that. So, yeah, the training's expensive, but we have grants to help districts out. And unfortunately, our classes, we actually start a class in a couple days here. So we've got classes in June because that's when school's off. But because no one knew what was going to happen, we've got attendances down, we've got openings. Well, now we've got all of this demand because now they've got the ability. And unfortunately, schools sit around and wait until something like Uvalde happens, and then all of a sudden go, ooh, man, we talked about this a few years ago after Parkland, but we never did anything. Well, you know what? Fine. It's sad that they took that, but at least let that be the impetus to get going on things. So we're going to run a couple more foundation classes. Everyone's focused, we went from 700 hours training to only 24. No, really, we went from 0 training to 24. And our class isn't 24. Everybody likes to talk about that. They forget there's an 8-hour foundation class that's a prerequisite to be in the class. Oh, there's an 8-hour concealed carry class that's a prerequisite to get in that. So it's more training. It's not about how much training you get. It's about the quality of training you get.
Right.
And we furnish, we don't do the training. We hire world-class trainers. So Tactical Defense Institute down in Adams County and Andrew Bluebaugh with Apex up here in Wadsworth and Rittman area.
Yeah, it's like I said, last year Rob and I were in the course, and I was very impressed. I mean, I've taken training across the country from world-class trainers, and you are absolutely correct in that the trainers and the caliber of the trainers that you have are top notch.
And there was people there with virtually no pre-existing training, and others that had a lot of training. He was able to handle all of that, get them all on the same page, and move them through that pretty easily.
I mean, and it was really interesting watching their demeanor, knowing that they had been in a position to where they said that they would gladly give their life for their students, but they don't have to. They're going to give their training, their time, and stand for their students, and it's amazing to watch.
Two of the neatest testimonials we've had in the last couple of years. We had one teacher at the end of the class got up and said how he was with his wife running the Boston Marathon, standing at the finish line. She finished just in time, and then they moved away so other people could watch their loved ones finish before the bombs went off. So they were there just a few minutes before they went off. So when he left, he goes, everybody's running away, and I'm running away with them. And then you get finally first responders start coming in, and you start realizing how horrible it is. And he goes, it's bothered me ever since that when people needed care, I didn't know what to do, and I ran away. This class has given me, the medical is the most important thing to him. He goes, it's given me the tools to help and do something. I will never be in that position again. I will never have that horrible feeling again. Thank you so much. And then another one was really cool. It was up in one of the northern classes. We had 2 law enforcement officers, both 20-plus years, so combined close to 50 years law enforcement experience. We get done shooting the qual. After 2 days with us, this guy shoots the qual, and he looks at his buddy, and he goes, hey, that's the first perfect qual I have ever shot. And his buddy goes, yeah, me too. Well, what the heck is wrong with the state of Ohio? In 700 hours, they can't get somebody to shoot a perfect qual like a second-grade teacher. Come on. So these cops, they always wanted good training, but they were just good enough. Well, good enough is not good enough. We strive for perfection. We settle at excellence. We push everybody, no matter where you are, to be better and better and better. Our Olympic athletes, our professional athletes, guess what, folks? They've got coaches that are always tweaking them and making them better. We can all raise our game, and that's really what this is about. It's not about a 24-hour class. No, that doesn't make you an expert in anything. But we teach you what to work on and how to train so that when you go home and work on it, you're not just shooting, you're training. There is a difference. And what's really neat is when people come back to level 2, and we get to really, now they've been working on this stuff for a year or 2 years, and we really get to push the shooting and push the tactics and push all the stuff and raise them to another whole level above it. And it's just so neat. The relationships that come out of schools that work with their law enforcement, it benefits law enforcement, it benefits the schools, it benefits the whole community. And there's no reason why that shouldn't be going on. I never saw that when we started this program, never even considered any of this stuff. But those are the benefits that come out of this program, and it pays enormous dividends. And it's frustrating to me that any district would go, yeah, we're really not interested in having a safer community or safer schools. We're just going to roll dice. We think it's okay, and nothing's happened yet. It's like saying because somebody drives home drunk every night and they haven't gotten in a car accident, well, it's okay, we'll put your kids with them. Nothing ever happens to him.
Right,
My house
it's
is
not
burned
happening.
down.
And they're so much more concerned about the optics than they are about the reality. And so
I'll tell you the medical part of it, some of that, like this showing how to stage your tourniquet so that it's usable with one hand or something. Nobody ever showed us that stuff. That when they have those plastic dummy things where you could show you how to pack a wound. Who knew that you could shove a whole T-shirt in there?
I mean, it was really a learning curve or a learning experience.
Yeah, and how much worse a knife wound can be than a gunshot. Those can be just absolutely devastating. Oh, it's just a knife. People don't worry about it because we all have knives in our kitchen and they're all safe and we don't worry about it. Well, guess what, man? Go down and talk to any ER in an inner city and look at some knife. Ask them about knife wounds. They are devastating stuff. So, yeah, it's important to be able to treat this. And we've got. I don't even know how many lives have been saved through the trauma stuff and the medical stuff included in our training. One of the neat things, you can buy medical equipment lots of places. Careful on Amazon on the tourniquets. Anything, if you're buying a $15 tourniquet, you're buying a fake. So don't do that. But we're the only ones I know of. If you have to use one of our tourniquets or any of our gear, you use that and save a life. Let us tell the story and help educate others, and we'll replace your used items for free. For life, because we want everybody to have this stuff and to be able to continue to save lives.
Right, and so that's so amazing. And you guys, Ohio has been the leading factor in this, and so I know that Colorado follows it. Arizona is trying to initiate it. What is there other states that are looking at it or thinking about it, or if they are, how do they contact you?
Yeah, so I have been talking to people in at least 4 pretty big states in the past week that are interested in bringing Faster Saves Lives to their state and making it, several of them want to make it the official program of the state and get this in make it, you're not forcing it in anybody's school, it's all voluntary, but make it available to every school who wants it in their state. So it's going to be a really busy next year for us, I think, in gearing up and meeting this demand. And meeting it with professional and anybody can fill classes, but filling out with the instructors we need to do this, and it's going to be a challenge. But I'm looking forward to it. You cannot turn your back on a little kid and say, no, you know what? I'm too busy today to save your life. If you think you're too busy, talk to a parent who's lost a kid.
You're not, yeah. So Jim Irvine, Faster Saves Lives, folks. If you've got a spare $1, make a donation. There are